And blessed to be a part of your day. Kevin Miller in the morning at KIDO Talk Radio. Coming up, we will hear what you have to say concerning William Barr's testimony. Also, the Idaho legislature finally passing Medicaid expansion. And lo and behold, the libs aren't happy. That's right. The Libby libs aren't happy, but who cares? They're never going to be happy. Donald Trump could do wonderful things, could give everybody $1 million, and the devious little libs still would not be happy. You know? And look, Ray, our phone screener's down this morning, so we'll start with that. All right. Let's go to Blair Ellis joining us. Blair, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me on.
Well, you're going to be the highlight so far here, joining us from the RNC, and certainly a lot of issues going on in Washington. When we take a look at the Democrats, they don't seem to be focused on getting legislation done. They just seem to be focusing in on derailing the Trump train.
Totally. Their whole MO has been let's obstruct and resist. There's been nothing substantive that has been put forth by the Democrats since they took over the House. I think their most substantive thing thus far has been the Green New Deal, if we can even call that substantive. That's more of a pie in the sky type of proposal. But I think we're seeing it play out. I think all that Democrats really want to do is resist everything Donald Trump has to do or say, and instead try and peddle this fake Russian collusion narrative that's been debunked formally now. But that's certainly not deterred Democrats from still chasing a rabbit down a never-ending rabbit hole.
Indeed, when you take a look at the impact it's having on the nation, it can't be good.
No, it's really not. And it's a shame because I think there are a lot of things that really Republicans and Democrats alike could be coming together to work on right now, including the crisis that's unfolding at our border. We saw USA Today published a big story yesterday. 92,000 illegals were apprehended at our southern border in the month of March. That is a 12-year high. So for Democrats to try and keep calling this manufactured is just false. March 2019 apprehensions were 142% higher than March 2018 apprehensions. We saw someone testify yesterday on Capitol Hill before the Senate Homeland Security hearing. It was the Rio Grande Valley chief agent who again echoed just how serious the crisis is that's unfolding. He said in his 30 years working for Customs and Border Patrol, he has never witnessed the conditions that we're currently seeing at the border. So that is just one example of about a dozen where we could really use the Democrats working with Republicans and President Trump to address something on behalf of the American people.
Well, and that is the concern, that you have the Democratic Party having not only their own operatives, but the operatives of the media.
Right. And it doesn't help either that we have the media who's trying to turn a conversation about border security into one on palace intrigue. They're trying to make everything, about kind of the behind-the-scenes actions at DHS right now instead of actually focusing on the crisis facing our country. And again, I just think it goes to show there's a lot of productive things that our country and our nation could be working on, could be talking about. For example, the March jobs numbers that came out last week that were pretty stellar. The economy added almost 200,000 jobs in March. Unemployment rate has been at or below 4% for about 12 months now. It's the longest streak in 50 years. But again, these are things you certainly don't hear the mainstream media talking about, and definitely are not things you hear Democrats discussing either.
Larry, when we take a look at the upcoming presidential race, it just seems that you have more and more Democrats getting in and more extreme leftist pledges if they're elected.
Totally. And I think that's been something to me that's been the most fascinating to watch unfold is, back in 2016 when we're gearing up for 2016 when we had the Democrat field unfolding, Bernie Sanders was really kind of the furthest left that candidates were willing to go in terms of their ideology. And it's really been interesting to see just how far left the party's gone in a few short years. We now have everyone kind of doing this race to the left to kind of radically embrace all the policies that Bernie Sanders used to just kind of solely stand for. I mean, we've seen people talk about government takeover of everything, government takeover of healthcare, government-funded jobs. We've seen most recently, some even advocating to abolish the Electoral College. So it just kind of makes you wonder how far left are they going to go, and what kind of ridiculous proposal and stance are they going to come up with next?
Well, and that's the crazy part about this is there's no fiscal responsibility with the open borders crowd, with the expand benefits crowd, with everything else. It's as if they believe that we have some type of money tree, and believe it or not, and former President Obama was talking about this. I mean, he's looking fairly conservative compared to the crew we have now.
He totally is. And I think that Mr. Obama has even done his best to try and address that himself. But, look at the Green New Deal. I mean, we saw that was like a $93 trillion proposal over the next 10 years. That's the equivalent of $600,000 per household. If Democrats got their way with the Green New Deal, it would cost $93 trillion. I mean, the fact that they would outline this kind of pie in the sky proposal and then not put forth any substantive way to try and pay for it, I think speaks exactly to your point. There's no real teeth behind what they're doing right now and what they're putting forth. I think everything is just all this one big effort to try and appease their leftist base, but it's not based on reality.
Well, and that's the scary part. Getting back to this new Green Deal, and my personal favorite is that the world's going to end, and that global warming is this generation's World War II, or whatever you want to call it.
Right. And it's not just kind of this radical environmentalist proposal. It's just truly, it's this massive taxpayer boondoggle that is really going to give government control over just about every aspect of our lives. And again, to your point, the fact that they said, if we don't put this proposal into action, the world's going to end in 10 years. Lest we not forget, about 2 weeks ago, Mitch McConnell in the Senate took this proposal up for a vote, this exact very Green New Deal. He took it up for a vote. He wanted to see if Democrats would put their money where their mouth was, if they had the courage to talk the talk and walk the walk and vote for it. And by golly, none of them did. They all kind of ran away from it. Even senators that had co-sponsored the bill or kind of signed on to the legislation to really echo and show their support, not a single one of them voted for it. And I think that just shows that they are all talk. They want to do whatever they can to win over the base, but when it comes time to actually putting things into action, they're scared and they're not willing to do it. And I think that should hopefully and is hopefully resonating with liberals right now as they start thinking about who they're going to put in office and who the best person is to represent them.
Right, and even when you take a look at the liberals, you've got a few from California, and California's in such crisis. You have people moving to states like Idaho and across the country and Texas and such. It's amazing. Blair, getting back to this issue involving the Democrats, I mean, they want to get rid of the Electoral College. They want to lower the voting age. They want to stack the Supreme Court. And,
right.
For years we've heard, well, the map favors the Democrats. It just appears that they lost fair and square, and they want to change the rules.
Right. That's exactly what it is. And I think it just echoes, they're still sore losers from 2016, and they're still completely unwilling to accept the voice and the vote of the American people back in 2016. And I think it's going to be a pretty harsh reality going into 2020 if they're still unwilling to acknowledge, number one, Donald Trump is president. And I think a lot of this kind of peddling, this fake Russian collusion narrative has really just been one effort to try and delegitimize his presidency. But you're spot on. This is nothing more than an attempt to change the rules because they didn't like the outcome back in 2016. Well, maybe the solution is get better at what you do. Propose better policies, put things forward that you can run on, and maybe that's how you can win with the American people.
Well,
take a note from Donald Trump, take a note from the Republican Party.
Well, let's hope they don't.
I know. Amen to that. But let's also hope they stop trying to change the rules because that's pretty ridiculous.
I would agree. Blair Ellis joining us from the RNC. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio, 107.5 FM, 580 AM. Back to some of these Democrats, though. You've got this guy, and it's fascinating. The media has this love affair. You have Mayor Pete from South Bend, Indiana. You would think that South Bend, Indiana, which is a lovely place, you would think that he had been there for years based on the glowing coverage that he's gotten. And it's not like it's been a turnaround. It's not like South Bend is a big city. And yet you'd think that he was the mayor. You'd think he was Rahm Emanuel the way they're treating him.
I know. He is somebody that I think a lot of people are looking at as kind of this fresh face, a little bit of how people, I think, first looked at Beto and kind of continue to look at Beto over in Texas. I think he is getting some praise from just some, small pockets of maybe unexpected audiences or people that didn't necessarily consider themselves politically inclined to vote before. I actually think he may try and siphon some votes away, and I think he will eventually siphon some votes away from Beto. I think that they're kind of similar in their ability to appeal to younger people. I think they kind of have this, they're trying to have this cool persona about them, a little bit similar to that of Obama when he first ran. But again, I mean, he's somebody who's just as far left as the rest. He's called the Green New Deal a sound framework for confronting climate change. He's called for abolishing the Electoral College. He's endorsed the idea of a single-payer health care. So he's just as liberal as the rest of them.
Yeah, and finally, Blair, and by the way, it's your first time with us here at KIDO Talk Radio, so welcome.
Yeah, well, thank you. I know it's been a pleasure to join you.
Well, and I have to hit you with this one, but could you imagine if the Republican Party said, well, we don't want any white men in it. We don't want this. I mean, the identity politics of the Democratic Party, earlier we talked about, getting more extreme, but, the whole identity politics, well, we have to check this portion. Then we have the whole Elizabeth Warren controversy. Then Kamala Harris might not be legitimate enough to some people. Beto, he's confused because he's got to apologize for making a joke about his wife. This is, and we're not talking about Saturday Night Live. We're talking about who's going to be the next leader of the free world if they get their way. Right.
And it's funny that you mentioned that too. That's actually a point that I don't think has made a ton of, it's not really resonated yet, but Obama actually made this point too at an event in Berlin over the weekend, this idea that there's a lot of ideological rigidity among Democrat hopefuls right now, and that it's ultimately going to really weaken the Democrat Party's political capital heading into 2020. It's this notion that, one of them starts straying from so-called 100%, purity on one issue. And so then they all kind of start firing at each other. And that's been a really interesting dynamic to watch unfold too, is kind of how they have this list of boxes. They feel like they all have to check and fit perfectly in. The litmus test is kind of what we refer to it here in D.C. But it's this idea that they've all got to be the exact same in terms of where they fall on the ideological spectrum. And I think that that's going to really hurt their chances because they're all trying to kind of be the same, and there's no real distinction among them in choosing to kind of have that approach. And I think it's going to really backfire on them as we head into 2020.
Blair Ellis, we appreciate you. Thank you very much. We hope to hear from you again, and enjoy Washington.
Thanks so much. Pleasure is all mine.
There we have it. Blair Ellis joining us from the RNC. Remember, when you're waking up on the right side, we're giving you the guests from D.C. We're giving you the guests here in the Treasure Valley. Phone number is 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Coming up next, we'll take a look at William Barr. And, this is a tough one. I understand this. I totally get it. The Idaho legislature, God bless him, best to him, it's not as scintillating, it's not as sizzling as Donald Trump. But getting back to this 1159, and I know, do we have the accountability bell? Maybe I should just call this the 1159 post bell. The governor doesn't sign 1159 because now we hear I got 3,000 phone calls. Okay, but he signs Medicaid expansion with work requirements, which I think is a good thing. Is if the bill has limits on it, I think it's wonderful. But then all you have the Johnny Comes Latelys, this new group that passed it as Prop 2. They're going to sue. Everybody's going to sue. So if you were afraid of a lawsuit or concerned about a lawsuit about 1159, the initiative bill, why would you be concerned about? Wouldn't you have the same concerns about Medicaid expansion? And by the way, a gentleman that doesn't get a lot of credit, enough credit, House Majority Leader Mike Moyle. He's probably not Mayor Beater on Beater's guest list, but he's got to be a favorite of a lot of taxpayers throughout the state of Idaho. We'll tell you why next. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. So just as we were leaving the air yesterday, Attorney General William Barr had got an earful from congressional Democrats. We'll get to that. KIDO Talk Radio time is 6:22. And I know what you're saying. Kevin Miller, what are we doing here? Where's the Kevin Miller cash code word today? It is casino. That's right, casino. CASINO, casino. That is the 6 a.m. Kevin Miller cash code word of the day. Listen at 6 a.m., 8 a.m., and 3 p.m. for your chance to win Kevin Miller's cash with Kevin Miller twice and Sean Hannity at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So, Big news yesterday where we had the Attorney General under fire, under siege, and you can see and you can hear why the president did pick William Barr to be the Attorney General, because you had the same little devious little libs, repeat after me, everybody, devious little libs with their sorry shenanigans trying to stir things up. And the Attorney General, well, he wasn't buying what they were trying to sell.
I still have so much to do. I'm not ready. I have to paint the nursery. I have to put the crib together. I don't even have a...
And there we have it. Whoops. Bad move on my part. That was the late night host. Let's get to what William Barr had to say when directly confronted by the devious little libs and what they had to say and how dare you, and you've covered things up. Speculation run amok.
I've said what I'm going to say about the report today. I've said what I'm going to say about the report today. I've issued 3 letters about it, and I was willing to discuss the historic information of how the report came to me in my decision on Sunday. But I've already laid out the process that is going forward to release these reports, hopefully within a week. And I'm not going to say anything more about it until the report is out and everyone has a chance to look at it.
You know, and we'll share with you and get your reaction at 580-5436. 580-KIDO. William Barr is just saying, look, this is how it's going to be. Then it started shifting towards Obamacare, like the Attorney General has anything to do with Obamacare. Well, you want to get rid of Obamacare, and when you get rid of Obamacare, people are going to be thrown out, and you're going to prosecute people, and you're going to put them in cages. Why don't I just play for you the ridiculousness of it?
The effects on consumer costs and coverage, have you done that analysis, or have you reviewed one?
Well, when we're faced with a legal question, we try to base our answer on the law.
On the law. So the answer is no.
No, the answer is he's in charge of the law. He's not in charge of the budgeting when it comes to Obamacare.
Will we have the complete report? Or are you going to be selective as to what you give members of Congress?
There we have it. That's Representative Louie, whatever her name is. It doesn't really matter, with all due respect to that young lady or not so young lady. They won't stop until they get the report. And what they want to do with the report is they want to smear the president. They want to unmask people. I'll explain that in a minute. 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Kevin Miller in the morning. I go back to this. They want to unmask people. Grand jury testimony. Remember, that's what they did. They smeared people during the Obama administration. You remember that old game, smear the, we can't say that word anymore. Smear the, it used to be like football. Maybe you didn't play it west of the Great River, but east of the Great River, we call it smear the. Anyway, that's what they're trying to do. They smear the, don't say that word anymore. Unless you're part of a protected class, then you can. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio, traffic and weather together. Let's get you to work. Work. Safely and on time. Good morning, Dave. Kevin Miller in the morning here, KIDO Talk Radio. Phone numbers, 580-5436, 580-KIDO. We'd love to hear what you have to say. And, we have somebody on the line. We'll get to them in a minute. First and foremost, though, William Barr saying he's going to assemble a team to look into the counterintelligence investigation on President Trump during the campaign in 2016. Oh, the liberals are upset about that one, folks. Attorney General William Barr has assembled a team to investigate the origins of Strzok, of Page, of, not Jeff Zucker, but of Andrew McCabe, of James Comey. And now Democrats are saying that's not fair. It's about time. Pete from Mountain Home, good morning. You're on KIDO Talk Radio with Kevin Miller. Hello, Pete.
Kevin, it is so refreshing to have an attorney general that is actually concerned with the rule of law and that it may actually apply to the Clinton and Obama cabal. That's my first point. The second point is one that my sister, who lives in Ohio, where many great things come from, including myself, she heard of a wonderful way to deal with the hundreds of thousands of illegals seeking asylum at our southern border. Instead of trying to put them in ICE or federal detention areas, we should transport them for free to all the sanctuary cities in America, L.A., San Francisco, Portland, Seattle, Chicago, and drop them off at the city halls of those cities and say, just go in there and tell them that you need help, and they will take care of you. And let all those wonderful sanctuary cities pay for them.
Right. Of course, the sanctuary cities, they don't want to pay. They want to take the federal government. I like this, Pete, building on your point. If you want to be a sanctuary city, great. Then you don't get federal funds.
Yeah, and here are people for you to give sanctuary to. You put them on your welfare rolls. You send them to your health clinics. But I think that since they want this to continue, let them pay for the people, to help the people out that are coming in here. Don't let them wander all through America. Send them to the places that have declared themselves were sanctuaries.
Well, I think we're all going to be sanctuaries or sorry sanctuaries.
Yeah, we're all going to pay for it. That's for sure. But yeah, it is thrilling to see Attorney General Barr is going to have somebody look into basically the treasonous activities that went on at the end of the Obama administration.
And something, it's funny. Can I share something with you for a minute, Pete?
Sure.
I used to work in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I know Bill Peduto, the mayor there, and he was a goof. And the only person that would talk to Bill Peduto was me. He was ruined politically. I just have a thing for underdogs. And I recently got a tweet from a guy saying, I listen to you in Pittsburgh. You used to be an all right guy, but you've sold your soul to the Trump people.
Oh.
I haven't sold my soul to anybody, but the president of the United States is finally doing something right.
Yeah, something for the United States and not for, I don't know, Iraq and Iran and Russia and the Ukraine and the European Union and everyone except America. And it's so nice that our president did not immediately go on an apology tour to the world, that he actually likes America and thinks we're a great country.
Pete, God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Keep it up, man.
All right, brother. Waking up on the right side. Coming up next, Mike Moyle is going to be a friend to taxpayers for quite some time, the House Majority Leader, but not on Dave Beater's VIP list. I promise. We'll tell you that coming up after the news. You're listening to KIDO Talk Radio, 107.5 FM, 580 AM. Good morning, Maggie. And it's not looking good for hemp. So if the legislature gets its way, hemp will be transported in the state of Idaho, but you won't be able to grow it. Never underestimate the power of law enforcement in the state of Idaho. Much more on that coming up. And as I predicted, the upcoming marijuana wars. But before that, we go to Tanya J. Powers. She joins us from Fox News Radio, exclusively in the Treasure Valley on KIDO Talk Radio. That's 107.5 FM, 580 AM, your home for Fox News. And Alec Baldwin says that he can possibly take on Donald J. Trump. Thankfully, we've got our insider, our political expert. Oh, she hates it when I say that. To give us the background. Good morning.
I only hate it when you say it because it's simply not true. That's the only reason that I really just, rail against it.
Well, as William Randolph Hearst said, people are more interested in entertainment than information. That's a true quote. Look what happened to him.
I'm not going to dispute that particular quote in these days and times. Not at all. And along those lines, yes, you're right. Alec Baldwin did tweet, and he said, if I ran for president, would you vote for me? He said, I wouldn't ask you for any money, and I promise I will win. His tweet goes on to say beating Trump would be so easy, so easy, so easy.
Now, you're a smart person. You're an accomplished person. That makes one of us. So, Alec Baldwin, and I see Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski doing this all the time. It's almost as if these folks can't get enough of each other and to try and provoke the president. And the president sometimes will oblige them, and sometimes people say things and he'll smack them anyway on Twitter. To me, it just seems like, especially since he's tweeted it And that seems to be the president's language. Could he just possibly be looking for a reaction?
Oh, it's possible. Yeah. I mean, the president hasn't really. I haven't seen a tweet that's specifically back at Alec Baldwin about this. Of course, he has tweeted before and did a few days ago about Saturday Night Live. He does that from time to time. That's not new. But I haven't seen anything personally toward this particular tweet. And of course, this is getting a lot of reaction. There's people who say, "Oh, please, yes, run." It would make the election of Donald Trump, a re-election, much easier. Then there are a lot of people who say, "Absolutely, please run. We would support you." I would like to tell you what some more of these look like for myself, but I have to rely on others reporting because Alec Baldwin has blocked me on Twitter. So I can't look at the real-time responses to his tweet.
You've been blocked?
But I have.
Wow.
Yeah.
In going back to this now, for me, it was always politics that was part of the news that I liked. What about you? What about the news? Was it local news, hard news, national news? What really, as a young, impressionable person, motivated you?
It wasn't politics, I can tell you. I honestly came to politics way, way, way later than I guess most news people do. My favorite is people stories. I do a lot more of those or used to do a lot more of those than I, do now.
Like human interest.
Yeah. I mean, I find people stories very, very interesting, and so that's usually something everybody can relate to. So, but politics is definitely, especially since covering 2016 and everything else that I've gotten to work on, especially while I was here. It's definitely more of an interest of mine now.
Sure. It just seems that, we've crossed the line where we have entertainers that are going to jump in, and we have all these Democrats. And from a news/political background, this could be, I don't want to say double the field of the Republicans, but you have so many choices. Congressman now from California, a couple people from Colorado, a senator from California. You've got your old favorites, Bernie, Joe Biden on the cover of Time magazine this week. I'm wondering if it could just be too much. You could have, some people, like in other countries where they don't have two dominant political parties, where you could have somebody coming away with actually not a majority of the vote, because I believe this time around it's not winner take all. So this could go on for quite some time, and you could have some of these unknown candidates, not Alec Baldwin, but staying in the race for quite some time.
Yeah, you could. I think it's really interesting. I've been doing a lot of studying on all these candidates because I never know what I'm gonna have to cover or to anchor, for that matter. A lot of times I will do a lot of our anchored coverage, and so you have to kind of stay up. There's a lot of homework involved.
Sure.
So I kind of have to stay up on who's running and where they're from and what they stand for and the thing that sets them apart from everybody else. And, it is, kind of your head will swim after a while of when you dive into the biographies of, more than a dozen people and try and keep it all straight in your head. I think it's interesting.
Right. Who said what? Who went to college here? Right. Yeah.
Wait a minute. Is this one from Iowa and then moved to, hold on. Who was that?
Right.
But I think it's, from that standpoint, since you do have a lot of, several folks who don't have the name recognition of a Bernie Sanders or a Joe Biden, I think a lot more Democrats supporters are probably doing a lot more homework than they have in previous years. I think a lot of people who are even Republicans are getting more interested in, okay, who could be the person who runs against him? You know what I mean? It's, even if it's just from a standpoint of, gee, what's this going to look like? You know what I mean? It's not because they're thinking about necessarily voting for one of them. But I think it's, there's a lot of them that have gotten a lot of interesting coverage, and they all not everybody stands for the same thing. So I think that's pretty interesting when you look at that side of it. Which ideas are going to win? Right,
and how right now they haven't had any punches thrown at them.
Mm-mm.
Who can handle?
No, not yet.
You're looking at a guy like Mayor Pete, and look, South Bend is not whatever, and all of a sudden, people he's got a record to run on. So far, he's the bell of the ball.
He does.
Yeah.
And matter of fact, he's one of the ones that I've been doing more research on recently. And it's when you talk about some of the stuff that he's done, I mean, it's kind of impressive. I mean, he's a young guy, and he's definitely got a lot of years ahead of him politically. But it's going to be interesting to see when some more of these stories come out. I think he hasn't officially said yes, he's running. It's been exploratory so far, but I don't think it's going to surprise anybody when he does. I expect him to do that soon.
Toddy J. Powers, talking politics.
Well, I've got to do my homework in order to be able to keep up with you, Kevin. You've been doing politics a lot longer than I have.
That's all I have, really.
Yeah, I know.
I have a radio, I have my dogs, I have Mrs. Miller, and then I have the copy of Richard Ben Kramer's What It Takes in my bed every night. Too much information.
See.
Yes.
There you go.
And I cradle that book, What It Takes. What a great political book. Anyway, Toddy J. Powers, there we go. That's why I don't talk about myself.
I want to call in and I want to talk to Mrs. Miller. I don't want to talk to you. I want to talk to her.
Yes, that'd be the great unraveling now, wouldn't it?
It would.
Thank you, ma'am.
Sure, anytime.
Toddy J. Powers joining us, Fox News Radio. Thank you for waking up on the right side. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Don't forget Kevin Miller's Cash. Listen at 6 a.m., 8 a.m. during the Kevin Miller Show and 3 p.m. during the Great American Show. That would be Sean Hannity. Your chance to win up to $5,000. Now, yesterday, two things we're talking about. William Barr, if you're just tuning in, has said that he's going to take a look. The Attorney General is assembling a team to investigate the origins of the FBI's counterintelligence investigation. You remember the counterintelligence investigation? We had Strzok and Page. They were romantically involved, revealed during a closed-door congressional interview that the FBI knew so little about whether these unsubstantiated, speculative allegations against the president, at that time, candidate Trump, were true or not true. They still opened the probe, noting that they had a paucity of evidence because they're just starting down a path of vetting allegations. Page said later, as disclosed here on KIDO Talk Radio, it was entirely common that the FBI would begin a counterintelligence investigation with just such a small amount of evidence. Of course, she said, there's no there. And to lay off the Democrats. Well, of course, the Attorney General should be investigating, right? The Attorney General should be investigating this. This should have been happening when the Republicans were in power. And by the way, William Barr telling Congress that the redacted Mueller report will be released within a week to the general public. We can all sleep easier at night, true believer.
From my standpoint, within a week, I will be in a position to release the report to the public.
There we have it. Are you satisfied? I'm satisfied. Coming up next, finally, Mike Moyle, the House Majority Leader, why Mayor Beater will not have him on his Christmas card list. Kevin Miller on your home for Hannity, KIDO Talk Radio. Rolling on the right side. Kevin Miller in the morning. Coming up, we've got one conservative activist saying this whole white supremacy big deal is to scare brown people. That's right. Candace Owen talks to Congress. You remember her from, Firing Line or Firing Point or something of that nature. A young lady, very smart. Telling Congress left uses terms like white nationalism for power to scare brown people. And by the way, Representative Omar, you remember her, she's called Stephen Miller, a member of the president's administration, a very young man who I've personally known for years, a white nationalist or a white supremacist. It seems that is the new buzzword of the day. If you don't agree with someone, then all of a sudden, what do? Boom, boom, boom. You call them a name. And by the way, you can't come back from that, right? How do you come back from being called a racist in the society today and white privilege and everything else? I can't believe that our republic has survived so long without, acknowledging this. And now we have, as we disclosed yesterday, Cory Booker. Cory Booker actually putting something before Congress to deal with reparations. And apparently, Georgetown University is looking at that as well. Traffic and weather together. Kevin Miller in the morning. Let's get you to work safely and on time. Good morning, Dave. All right, here we go. Thank you, House Majority Leader Mike Moyle, for championing this bill through the House, through the Senate, and Governor Little signing this. And Dave Beater is mad. He's angry from the statesman over objections from Boise's mayor. Governor Little told Mayor Beater, "You're not the boss of me," and signed a bill that places new limits on how cities can use property taxes in urban renewal districts to fund stadiums and municipal buildings without going to the voters. By the way, somewhere, Tea Party Bob is dancing around. This is one of his pet peeves for quite some time. And if you live in the city of Boise or Meridian, you've seen taxpayer dollars, you've seen everything else go for these pet peccadillo projects without having a say in it. Now, I understand that we live in a republic, not a democracy, but people are frustrated. They get mad. They get angry. They get tired of not having a say in whether they want a new library. And look, libraries are great. What's wrong with the old library downtown? You have many people that come in, as we've disclosed. No one else will tell you this. And the reason why we say this is we've got to justify our existence. You have a lot of people that either they choose or, unfortunately, it has been chosen that they're homeless. So they decide, instead of looking for a job or hanging out under the bridge, under the connector, over by the skate park, that they go into the library. Library's warm, and most of them jump on all the computers, so people that really want to do legitimate work can't. And once the computers are all full, you can take my word for it, or you can just go to the library today and see. You'll see a ton of people in there, in the aisles, hanging out, having a good time. And if you've worked security at the library, you know what I'm talking about. I mean, do we really need a new library? You remember Tom Dale? He championed a library through Nampa. Some say that cost him his reelection. People have issues with spending money, even in good times when people are working more and making less. So the big question is, what will the bill's impact have on the new downtown library and proposed stadium west of downtown? Statesman says it's unclear. A citizens group says it plans to gather signatures for a petition to put the project on the November ballot. Now, this House Bill 217, which passed the House and the Senate easily, got people at the city council, also Mayor Beater and the Chamber of Commerce, fired up. The legislature requires a public vote if the cost of a municipal building or major remodel exceeds $1 million and is funded by at least 51% of non-federal public money. That includes urban renewal money. Now, having hung out with Tommy Ahlquist, a developer who continues to build and assemble his army to do what? I don't really know. You might want to find out on his Inspire Excellence podcast. He's talking to a lot of people, and, he ran a very strong campaign for governor. But he said, look, that's the only source of money that you can get for these developments. Good point. Then there needs to be some type of alternative. However, when you're looking at a $50 million stadium, are you telling me how much tax revenue would have to be generated to get that ROI on a $50 million stadium? Now you've got a guy from Atlanta who says, I'm going to put a minor league soccer team in, a baseball team. Look, the Boise Hawks play in Garden City. Why not renovate Hawks Stadium? Why not invite people to Meridian? Why not just leave it the way it is? Do you have to have new? And here's another one, an $85 million public library. How many people are willing to spend $85 million for a brand spanking new library? Now, the mayor didn't have a chance to speak directly to the paper. He had a spokesman do it, and here you have it. Quote, it's a shame that the legislature and governor are so willing to take away tools that allow cities all across Idaho to create jobs and strong economic conditions for their communities. Really? There we have it. Okay. An $85 million library Come on. Is that going to help the city of Boise when we are in a traffic bottleneck? That's going to help the city of Boise? That's number one. And number two, a $50 million. See, here's the deal with this. Whether, and people can say, oh, the city was targeted. Well, really, the city has run amok. You look at your tax bill, business person. You look at your tax bill, taxpayer, and you see what happens. Man, I need some more coffee. Sorry about stumbling there in the last segment. Fading fast. Thankfully, Fox News to the rescue. Waking up on the right side, Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Stay with us.